Hello and good morning to the chat session. I'm Rodney Allen Rippy, and you're watching the ThisWay Network. I've got my wonderful colleagues with us this morning, and we got an incredible guest. I'm going to kick it down to Jefferson. How you doing this morning, Jefferson?
Doing good, Ronnie. Thanks for having me. And I'm so excited about not just today's conversation, but obviously today's guest. Old, longtime friend of Nina's, right?
Yes, I am so excited that she's here. Hey, everybody, this is Nina. And my friend Tracy Baldwin Swayne, her last name is Swayne now because she got married over the last few years. But she's famous as Tracy Baldwin. I'm so excited she's here. I've known her for 30 years. You will not find a truer person than Tracy Baldwin Swayne, I want to tell you. And she wrote a book a few years ago about her experiences, her work experiences in the FBI. This book right here is called God is Bigger Than Your FBI. So, and we're going to be talking about that some today. I am so excited to get to ask you about this because Tracy, just even when I opened the flyleaf right here, right across from the dedication to your father in the book, is what I think might be the most shocking statement in the book. It says the Federal Bureau of Investigation has no objection to this publication. The views expressed do not necessarily represent the views of the FBI. And what's shocking about that to me is this book had to pass muster with the FBI, but this book is highly critical of the FBI. Wow. So tell us how did that happen? You know, what is the process that you went through as you were writing this book to even get it past them?
They have a department at headquarters at the FBI, and you have to send any publication, because I was on the inside, you have to send the publication to them as a manuscript for them to redact what they want to, and then they'll send you approval. And I had been told by other people who had written books that just prepare to wait a couple of years, before you get the word back. Now, this was the first indication to me that God was completely in charge of this whole thing, because from the time I sent it to the time I got the approval with no changes, it was approved as written, was 2 weeks. That's unheard of.
Wow.
Anything in the government that happens in 2 weeks is unheard of. So I don't know if someone up there just saw God in the title and thought, I'm not going to worry about it. Or if they read it and said, yeah, we need this out there. And I actually sent it to everyone I could think of, from Oprah, Dr. Phil, the news stations. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody wanted to plug it. Wow. It was very discouraging, but I didn't write that for me. It was written because God told me to write it. So when God tells you to do something, you do it. And when I would try to do anything else, he'd say, sit down and write. And so I did.
Wonderful.
So, well, now you both see why I said that was, to me, the most shocking statement in the book. Because the fact that it even got published at all was a miracle.
Well, and let me say, too, I sent it to over a dozen publishers, and they said they didn't want God in it. They didn't want me to talk about the churches and the experiences I had at church. They didn't want scripture in it. One of them even asked me, didn't you punch out a supervisor or shoot somebody you shouldn't have? We need something exciting in your book. And I said, that's not my story. So it's actually self-published. So it's published through lulu.com. And if you go to my website, tracybaldwin.com, there's a link there that goes directly to my store. And I also wrote a little pamphlet for the EEO process. And attorneys have told me that would save hours worth of clients if they would just read that little thing to let you know what the process is.
It is kind of crazy. I mean, you think about the flannel graph Sunday school lessons that our kids should be taught. It's like, the burning bush and Jesus walking on water and Tracy's book getting published in 2 weeks. It's like they need to like post them all together.
I don't know about that, but thanks. But you know what? The whole point is that God is bigger than anything. And the FBI in the title, when it says God is bigger than your FBI, that's your faith building incident. It's whatever you go through that shakes you to your core to make you really think about what you believe in. What do you grasp onto when your whole world is shaken? And for me, it was the actual Federal Bureau of Investigation. But for other people, it may be divorces or losing children, difficult times in, workplaces. I had a guy from Boeing that told me when he read it, he said, everything that you talk about is what I went through at Boeing. So go figure,
He punched a boss and he shot somebody he shouldn't have also.
No, that didn't happen. No.
No, but okay. So what did happen at the FBI? First, why did you even want to be an FBI agent?
Well, I'm an Army brat. My dad was military and we traveled all around. I've moved 23 times in my life. So we lived overseas. And, you get that patriotic feeling when you go through military. And I was actually visiting my sister in Colorado Springs. And at the time, she's not married now, but her husband was an Air Force pilot. And so I went to the Welcome Center and they had this wonderful video. And, you want to stand up and salute the flag because they just do such a great job on their videos. And I looked to my sister and I said, I hate that I'm too old to make a difference. Now, I was in my 30s, early 30s at that time. And she said, you're not too old. She said, have you ever thought of the FBI? And of course, I hadn't. All I had ever heard was they don't let women in the FBI. And she knew a couple, husband and wife in California, that were agents. And she put me in contact with them. I talked with them. And then I cold called offices. So the first one was in Colorado Springs. And I just called the office. I said, is there a woman that I could speak to, a female agent that I could speak to? And they put me in touch with someone and I took her to lunch. By the way, if you ever want to get with someone, offer food. Because they'll meet with you just to get a free meal. But I talked with her and I loved everything that she had to say. And then when I got to Huntsville, I called the office here and I asked to speak to a female agent and I took her to lunch. And so I was very impressed with what the women were saying as far as just feeling comfortable in their own skin. They were completely sold in, just like I was at the beginning. But it was really just to be able to make a difference. You're working on federal cases that affect people. So I wanted to make a difference. I still do.
Wonderful. I have a question. Tracy, I'm sorry. Tracy, if you look at your work with the federal government, and did you run into things that there was a lot of, you had to be kind of cut and dry on things, and did you ever see situations where people's rights or things like that were challenged because of the decisions that they make? I mean, you're following your own heart. You're following your own heart and you're doing your thing. How did that affect you on the job? I mean, a lot of times people can't worship or they can't express. Do you think that's a problem that we shouldn't be having on the job?
Well, I do believe there should be a separation of church and employment. Everyone has their own feelings. And I always go back to how would I feel if someone else, said something that I don't believe in. I wouldn't appreciate that. So it's not a church, but I know that I was able to make a difference in the cases that I worked. I can tell you there are a lot of liars in the FBI. I would say probably over 75% cannot be trusted. Power corrupts. And when you have a badge and a gun and you can go anywhere and just say, I'm agent so-and-so. And by the way, every agent is a special agent. If you hear special agent, it's the same.
There's not
But-
mediocre agents and so-so agents.
Well,
and
yeah,
then
there are. I think they should put that on the badge, actually. I
Mediocre.
graduated last in my class, and I'm a jerk.
Oh,
That
goodness.
should be on the badge.
Ooh.
But yeah, there are a lot of agents that don't belong in the FBI, and there are some good ones. And I would just want to say this up front. I wanted to make sure to say this. No, I don't trust the FBI, because you don't know if you're going to get a good agent or a bad agent. And by the way, they don't record anything. You know, other law enforcement agencies, they have a recording of any kind of interview or interrogation. The FBI won't do that. And that's because when I, as an agent, write down my 302, which is the report form that you do, when I write it down, my word stands. Doesn't matter what you say later. So if I didn't write it down right, guess who wins in court? I do. That's not right.
Yeah.
So what I've told people, and please, 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 if you hear nothing else, hear this. Yes, I think you should participate, if you can, with any kind of investigation. It's important that we clean up the United States, that, you know, the FBI can do their job. But always request and demand you have a court reporter in the room with you, so that you know what's being said is accurate. So that's my number one thing is you don't know if you're talking to a good one or a bad one. And there's so many bad ones, you just don't know.
Tracy, can you get that just by demanding it?
Well, you may have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And they may say no, and they may say, okay, I'm going to make my case some other way. Fine. Then you're out of it. Because I'll tell you, the people who participate in investigations with the FBI are turning their lives upside down. Now, in my case, I thought, and that's even why I wrote the book, why I went through the path that I did, because I stood up for what was right. And there's some things that I call the wiggle factor, kind of gray area. There are other things that, guys, no, this is just not right. It needs to change. It needs to stop. And actually, the report that I wrote in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that was my first duty station. I wrote a report and I gave it to the assistant special agent in charge. Now, mind you, that's the number 2 guy in the office, and he stomped around like a 3-year-old. I've never seen anything like it in a professional place. He would slam doors, scream at people, get red in the face. This guy's carrying a gun. I mean, it was terrifying. But I showed him the report. I said, these are things that need to change, and change immediately. And he said, no, I don't think so. So I took it to the number 1 guy, and he said, you just need to stop talking. So I sent it to the only other recourse I had, which was what they have at headquarters is an ombudsman. And he's supposed to, you know, kind of be the mediator between the agents and the upper management, so to speak. They don't have an HR in the FBI. So he read it and he said, can I show this to the director? And I said, please show it to anyone who can help. And then I was offered a transfer just a short time later. And when I got to Albuquerque, there were about 5 women in the office. It's a smaller office. By the time I left 4.5 years later, 2 had quit, 1 committed suicide, 1 was indicted, and then I was transferred. So I believe it was God that got me out of there without taking my own life. And that's what I talk about in the book. It's hard stuff, y'all. You know, I've been told it's an easy read because it goes quickly. But I talk about some really hard things, because we're told in the FBI that you're the top 2% of the United States. You're the best of the best. That is drilled into you from the time you get to Quantico for training. And when you hit an office like Albuquerque and find out how bad it is, if this is the best of the best, where do you go from there? And I was thinking, go home to the Lord, because I can't do this. So,
Tracy, quick question. How do you see America? I mean, now, we are being really challenged because authorities, case in point, like the FBI, and there's certain things that you must do. I mean, you have you have a pretty high calling. What do you think would be the solution as far as um, putting trust back into an authority like the FBI? What do you think would be the solution?
I'm so glad you asked, because that was what my petition was all about. I started a White House petition. I did a video to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the petition, and I had a YouTube channel I started just to put that video up. And not just the video, but the whole channel was deleted in one day.
Wow. That was
So,
quick.
of course, because I think I had 600 people that had seen the video at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
because it was Fix the FBI, that's the name of the video. And there was a White House petition that went with it to have a task force created to clean up the FBI. Well, when I was canceled off YouTube, which that has been reinstated, by the way. I think it was just a bot. I don't think it had anything to do. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
it scared people, and they wanted to distance themselves. So I couldn't even get the signatures that I needed on the White House petition. But to answer your question, um, my recommendation, and I know
Mm-hmm.
this would work, is that every 5 years agents go through a reinvestigation, which means you have to do a polygraph. There are certain steps you have to go through. But the polygraph is what's important, in my opinion, because it's important enough that if you fail it, you can't get in the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
But the questions that they ask, what's your favorite color? As an example, that's not going to do it. There are specific questions you need to ask. Have you lied when you're doing a case? Have you manipulated data to try to make your case? You need to ask those kind of questions. And since
Mm-hmm.
that's every 5 years, those agents go through, guess what? In 5 years, you've cleaned up the FBI. So once you have it clean, and you can say 98% of the agents are great and can be trusted, that's when you get trust back in the agency. It's not going to happen right now. You got a clean house. There are so many bad ones that, most people will never meet an FBI agent, and that's good because you're not on the side that needs that. But for the ones who do, you need to be able to trust that this is actually the premier law enforcement agency of the world. I believe in what the FBI stands for. I believe in what their mission is. The problem is they don't do it. So I don't think we can get trust until they clean house.
Yeah. Tracy, one of our viewers has made the comment that they think they should make it every 2 years, that they have to do that.
Well, that would be great, but that's a lot of manpower. You gotta remember, if you're going to do it right,
But
you have to have.
If we can hire 81,000 agents for the IRS, why can't we hire enough people to get that done?
Well, that's
my question.
I do want to say, it's not all bad, first of all, and they're not all bad. The training that they have at Quantico is exceptional. If the training could be transferred to the offices, you'd be golden. But the problem is that the culture of the FBI is such that when you graduate from the FBI Academy, you walk into the office, they say, forget everything you learned. That's not how you do things. We're going to tell you how to do things.
Wow.
And
now, Tracy, you told me about a sign that was on the wall when you walked into the Arizona office, I think you said. Tell them about that. Yeah, Albuquerque office. Tell them about that.
Okay, there was this huge sign that said, this office condones sexual harassment. See, I love those looks, because that was my look. And I walked by and went, what? So I stood there and I read it again and I read it again. I so wish I took a picture, but y'all, this was back when we didn't have cell phones and, we didn't have things in the office. But I just could not, what? This doesn't make sense. But there had been a woman before I was there who had an EEO case, sexual harassment, that the agents, what they were doing to this woman. And I'm just going to give you one example because it's important that you know how egregious this is because I talked to her. This is firsthand. This is not what somebody told me. This is from her. That the agents would talk to her and say, hey, we need to go out on a raid, or we need to do whatever. And she would be standing close to them, and they would grab her neck and pull her head down in their lap and say, well, you know what you need to do first before we go.
Oh,
Y'all,
wow.
this is the FBI, and they are allowing this kind of stuff to happen. So she went through a case, and of course she won, and they put those posters in the office. I think they had to have them up for 2 years. That was the judge's order. And that was to keep people aware, hey, we need to change this culture. Well, it didn't change. They just changed their tactics. So when I end up there, my experience was a little different than what hers was, but it was still, women are not wanted. And so my first case against the FBI was gender discrimination. And the second was retaliation. And I won both. So,
And we had a question about that, by the way. One of our viewers, Bonnie Creighton, asked, she had a question for Tracy. She said, did you have any description of backlash from within the FBI after your book came out? I venture it didn't take even that long, did it?
Not from the book. No. And I had people praying for me because they thought I'd be killed after that book came out. Now, I just believe everything is filtered through God. So in my mind, even being in the FBI, you know, that's a question you have to ask when you go in is, can you pull a weapon and take a life? And for me, it's not my decision. It's the bad guy's decision, because I will protect myself. I'll protect my other agents, and I will protect, you know, people that are just in the vicinity that are innocent. But no, I really haven't had any backlash from the book. But it really didn't get anywhere. It has not been on the bestsellers list. It hasn't been plugged by any, you know, if Oprah had picked it up, which I sent it to her, but there's so many layers around people, who knows if she ever saw it. So
Yeah.
There you go.
there you go, Bonnie.
Well, you're on the ThisWay. You're on the ThisWay Network, so hopefully things will change. We get it out there, and plus we got Nina. Nina, she's a big spokesman, so she'll spread the word. But I did have a question. What is the difference between the FBI and the Department of Justice? Is there a line?
It's like a jacket. You know, the DOJ would be the coat, and the FBI is the pocket.
Oh,
so,
okay.
A great analogy.
Great analogy, by the way. I love that.
The same. Yeah.
Yeah. So now,
Rodney, I wanted to say something.
I'm sorry, Jefferson. Go ahead.
No, Tracy was going to ask Rodney something.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know, I saw the video you did about your sister.
Yes.
Okay. I want you to take your thoughts on that. And I know you had a lot going on internally about the whole thing, and multiply it by 1,000 every day for 9 years. That's where I was.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And you were trying to make a simple, easy correction. And that's kind of long story. I had a little video I had made. I had a little course correction on my sister about an issue. But that is an amazing thing to have to work it at a level that high and see issues and want to make change and actually have, you know, pushback or any type of resistance, or, you know, they turn a blind eye to it. That's pretty tough.
Yeah. And the thing that was so discouraging for me is that if you work hard, you do a good job, that should be appreciated, not slapped down. You shouldn't be slapped down for that. But the level of mediocrity in the FBI is just amazing. And, you know, they're going to make a paycheck really no matter what. And they don't care, most of them. And that's why I want to say, I don't want to group everybody, because there are some really good agents in there that are fighting that fight, struggling every day. And I know that my cases, there were a lot that I worked that came out differently because I was the lead agent. And I'm proud of that.
Speaking of that fight, what hope or I should say, what kind of odds does a God-loving, you know, moral, upstanding agent what kind of odds do they face if they wanted to stand firm in their convictions and maybe even want to disobey an order or say, wait, that's not right. That what we're about to do here, that's not the right call. I mean, what type of retribution would they be facing? Is that even something that is so out of bounds they dare not say those words as an active agent?
Wow. I would just say, pray. If God leads you, then do what he tells you to do. But if it's just a person, just to give my 2 cents, find something else to do. And I hate that. I hate to say that. But it's just so difficult to make any kind of positive change. And you're just hit down. And maybe this is not every office. Please keep that in mind. I was in 2. I was in Albuquerque and Houston. And Houston was much better than Albuquerque was. And maybe there's offices that don't have the same issues. I've been told otherwise. I've been told it's worse now than when I was there. So
because we see these moments that's really all over the news, and it seems like corruption and obviously political motivations against one side are running rampant. And I know, speaking to several friends of mine, when the president basically, said certain things against certain groups of red hat wearing people, there are normal Joe citizens out there saying, wow, is the FBI going to come after me? And are these FBI agents going to have the wherewithal to actually see just Joe citizen minding his own business? And will they put the brakes on it? But I guess there are no brakes allowed when it comes to certain investigations or investigation cases.
Well, let me share something with you just to kind of give you an example. And this was Albuquerque again. And, that just came to mind. I'm just praying that God's bringing that to mind, that it's not all bad everywhere. Maybe, I don't know, because I wasn't there. But in Albuquerque, we had the most senior drug agent was a raging alcoholic. And he would go out in the afternoons and pull his weapon on innocent people and see what their response was. If they'd fall down, if they'd pee on themselves, and he'd laugh. He thought that was really funny. Well, I actually talked to the University of Alabama in Huntsville, their students, about this. This is an ethics question. Okay. So what do? You're aware of this. You've been made aware of it. I was not personally there. I was told by a number of agents that this is what was happening. So you go to the supervisor, right? You tell him what's going on. Well, guess what? He's a drinking buddy. So now where do you go? Well, let's go to the ASAC, the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, number 2 guy. Guess what? He's a basketball buddy. He plays basketball with the guy or whatever. And then, okay, take it to number 1 guy. Guess who's out with him drinking? Where do you go when it's just up the chain and it's something egregious like that? Like the public is not being protected, and you're taking it to your management, to the upper folks, and they're not doing anything. So what? You just hope nobody dies until the guy retires? I mean, it's just, what do? And I'll put that question to you all. What do you do?
Really quick, I just think that at some point we have to let God be God. I mean, there are so many things that we can't control on the job, things that people say in law, politics, all types of things. But, we have to have faith and trust and believe that the great equalizer will be the Lord and will straighten these things out. And there are people who get by with crazy things, and then you see things that happen. We are less than a minute out. Wow. Where did the time go?
Really?
Nina,
really?
This is your guest. So Nina, I'll let you wrap it up.
Tracy, first let me ask, will you come back? We have so much we didn't get to cover. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about all the chapters in my book, because
absolutely.
Really,
I had a ton of questions.
And
how can we get that book again?
Go to tracybaldwin.com, or it's on Amazon. Please don't pay over $20. I've seen it out some places for $300. Guys, that's scamming. So
it's worth it.
Well,
It
thank you.
probably, yeah, I'm sure it is. But yeah, please do come back. We'll go ahead and set up a date for you to do that.
Okay.
And
that'd be
maybe the
great.
next time we can take an hour at
Ooh.
least. Because, yes, because we have so much we want to talk about, so much we didn't even get to. Thank you for being with us. Everyone,
Thank you all so much.
be of good courage. We are not alone.